everybody, welcome to this week's video. Today we are continuing our series on essentially Can I Ask That? Or is that allowed? And what we're talking about effectively is seasons of marriage and seasons of change. And so the question is, how do we survive?
This is their story. This is survival.
Staying in love as life changes, as the world around us shifts and moves, and also as we personally change, and as what we're going through in life, as all those changes. How do we stay in love? How do I stay in love when I change, or not when I change, but how do I stay in love when my spouse changes, when they maybe, whatever happens within them, how do I stay in love with them? Because I think sometimes we may get married. Obviously, most of us probably get married fairly naively, not really asking the right questions, or really just thinking what's going to happen. And then inevitably what happens is the person changes. I know that's certainly happened within my marriage. I know I probably changed. My wife certainly changed. And so as we went through these things, we had to adjust the way we interacted with one another, the way that we continue to stay in love and, fall in love kind of all over again. And there's a lot of changes. And so the question is, how do we stay in love? How do we stay in love during change? How do we stay in love as change comes around us? Because when change happens, the one thing that's guaranteed is that change is going to happen. But when change comes along, it creates stress.
Into this bag. Let's go.
And stress makes everything just really acute, really tight, and really intense. And so there's this great book, I believe it's by Gary Chapman, Seasons of Marriage, and he effectively uses the seasons of time of the year to kind of describe a marriage. And disclaimer: we at least where I'm at, we live in South Texas where we really don't have seasons. We kind of have two. We have hot summer, and then kind of not as hot, but I know there's other places in the world and in the country that have real seasons from what I gather. I've never really experienced them, but I'm sure it's a thing. People who enjoy snow and all kinds of other terrible things like that. But let's just break down the seasons and then we'll kind of walk through it. So the first season that he lists is spring. And we all know spring life is, the world is coming back, nature's recovering, all of these things. And so spring is where most marriages begin. It's characterized by excitement, joy, hope, and happiness, gratitude, and anticipation for the future. It is coming out of a season of winter. It's coming out of a time when things maybe die. And as we step into our marriage, there's a lot of excitement. The future just seems wide open. We can kind of grasp anything. And so spring is a wonderful, wonderful time. But if you've been married any amount of time, you recognize it does not last. The next season, my personal favorite season, is summer. And in summer, fun is the theme. Life is beautiful. You're reaping benefits of the effort to understand one another, happiness, satisfaction, and security in love. I love summer. I'm a summer person. Realistically, I try and live kind of a summer attitude all of the time. And that's certainly not possible. But when summer's going on, it really is a great time. And in marriages, that's what we want, right? We want it to be just fun, beautiful, kind of easy, not a kind of a crazy packed schedule, but it doesn't last. Eventually, you're going to move into potentially a season of fall, where in fall, everything looks fine externally, but internally things are changing. In places where seasons change, you can feel the weather change. You can feel the air maybe getting a little more crisper. Some plants that only live during the spring and the summer months begin to die. They aren't producing fruit, whatever it is. Animals go into hibernation. All of those things. That's what fall is leading it into. And so, as a married couple, and in terms of fall, you can either basically move towards a season of winter, which we'll talk about in a second, or back into spring. And so typically within fall, there may be a little bit of sadness, apprehension, loneliness, emotional depletion. And in reality, it's a fork in the road. Now, these are not, just to be clear, this is not as the calendar year progresses and as you move from the months that are in spring and in summer and in fall and in winter. That's not necessarily how it works. This is a season outside of time necessarily within our marriages. So just keep that in mind, that it's not in the summer months you're always going to be happy. That's not how it works. Or in the winter you're always going to be sad. That's not how it works. This is just saying that attributes and characteristics of a marriage may be reflected in these descriptions. So, continuing on, winter, coldness, harshness, bitterness. The best description that I read is dreams covered in ice. The dreams are still there, but they're covered in ice. It's been frozen over. They're hard to access. They're hard to get to. They're hard to even pay attention to, simply because they're covered in ice. Most of the interactions with a spouse are going to be logistical conversations, a lot of silence, arguments, maybe even some verbal abuse, rigid, uncompromising independence, which as a couple we are called and designed to be interdependent upon one another and ultimately on God. Pervasive pessimism. And so the key in this one is don't lay down in the snow to die. Seek help. These trials can produce patience.
You said we had to be patient.
Yes, you, not me. I hate being patient. Patience is for wimps.
And so, just kind of a couple of things. Life is built around change and progression. We cannot stop time. We cannot force time to slow down. It simply is outside of our power, though sometimes we want it. For my wife and I, in a season of young kids, early on we wanted to speed up time. We wanted our kids to move towards a place where they were more independent. They slept 8 hours a night and could feed themselves and do it. And now as our kids are, at least two of ours are into a series of that phase of life, we kind of want to slow things down. We're looking at our youngest now like, wait a minute, she's no longer a baby. And it's heartbreaking. And it's ironic and it's hypocritical because we experienced the desire to want to speed it up, and then now we want to slow it down. And we all have that in different seasons of life. And so life is built around change and progression, whether we like it or not. And for the fear to be removed from the occasion, trust in your spouse is essential. It is absolutely essential. And that that no matter what changes come, they're going to be by your side. And that's what we need. That gives us that security, that idea, right, of perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love drives out fear. That's what we want. And God certainly provides us that stability and that security. But within our marriage, it should be the same way, that we are on the same team, no matter what it is that we're going through. As life changes and as we change, we are willing to take these steps. As a married couple, our marriages are called to reflect the goodness and the glory of God. How good of a God He is, and the glory and the weight and the power and the significance of who He is. We're called to reflect that, and that's heavy. That's going to be a big burden. It's by design. And the way we respond to change and seasons in life is a witness to the world. People are watching us. People are looking at us because we claim Jesus as our Savior, and they want to see how we're going to respond. They want to see how we react. There's a passage of Scripture in Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, and it says this. It says, a right time, this is the Message translation, it says there's an opportune time to do things, a right time for everything on the earth, a right time for birth, and another for death, a right time to plant and to reap, to kill or to heal, destroy, to construct, cry, laugh, lament or cheer, make love or abstain, embrace or to separate, to search, right time to search, another to count your losses, one to hold up, another to let go, a time to rip out or to mend.
Oh, why do I fix everything I touch?
To shut up or speak up, to love or to hate, to wage war, and another to make peace. And really, it's just this idea, right, that life is there's this dichotomy, there is this split. We are going to move back and forth. And as we walk through life, it is going to happen. And so with your spouse, just a couple of questions. Where do you find yourself at the moment? Are you in a spring season? Not necessarily because you're newly married, but are you in a spring season simply because you're just in a really good spot. You went through the winter, you went through the harsh times, and you are moving towards spring where things are looking up again. Are you in summer where it's always fun? It's great. It's a great place to be, but it doesn't last forever. Eventually, you're going to have to take on some responsibilities. Or maybe it's a fall and you're at a fork in the road. We can move towards winter, or we can try and make our way back towards spring. And then ultimately, if you're in a winter period, just pray and work through it. Seek help. Don't lay down in the snow and die. Don't let the ice and the cold destroy you. Seek help. Seek community. Seek just a place where, you know, those things can thaw. And so then the question is, how did you arrive here? Think back, reflect on your relationship, reflect on what you've been through the last couple months, or the last couple of years, and recognize why you're in this space. Maybe it's you've done the work and that's great, or maybe you took your foot off the gas a little bit and you stopped doing the necessary work and you just got to start again. And then ask yourself, honestly, you and your spouse, where do you want to go from here? What season do you want to arrive back into? Where do you want to move to? And I think it's so critical, because I think as we walk towards life and as things change and as things move from easy to difficult, or as things move from where we had this packed schedule with their kids or our jobs, just taxing every bit of our life, and now all of a sudden we have some free time. Really seek God and one another, figure out what season you're in and where you want to go. Because I believe, I know you're going to go through seasons of life. And I believe we're called to thrive, not just survive, and really be able to stay in love and reflect God's love for us and for the church. And ultimately the gospel through our marriages. So think through the seasons you're in. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great one, and I'll talk to you soon.